Now, I said, well, I asked him whether the blackness of the tube was caused by this stuff being sucked up. He said, no, I thought that at first, but it wasn't. It was just lying there. It wasn't caused by the... also, he could see through the bottom of it, which indicates a kind of polarization effect, possibly. And it occurred to me that he could have witnessed the kind of beam that I'm talking about. That this was the kind of energy that might be used for crop formation. But he was watching it, he was looking at it with the beam unfocused. The beam was parallel, it was a parallel sided beam. And he had just seen it in scan mode, in effect. But perhaps if it had been focused at the bottom like that, it might have actually pushed the crop down, you see, the same kind of energy. And then I went on to conceive that if it could do that, and it was then made divergent at the bottom, that it could lift things up. The mode he was witnessing was obviously an unfocused mode. It was just a tube. And it was producing a rotational effect in the stubble. And it occurred to me, if that same energy, whatever it was, might be focused in some way, that it might create pressure on whatever it was focused on. Therefore, it might be used to push down crops. Also, it occurred to me, if it was divergent at the bottom, it might be used for lifting things up off the ground, including people, possibly. So the same technology could be used for multiple purposes.
Yeah, but you could, I mean, yeah, if you think about it, if you can cause something to move at a distance without touching it, then you could possibly make it do the opposite, which would be to pull it towards you without touching it, i.e. to lift it off the ground. So like you say, that if they have the technology that they can push a crop down from distance, then they could probably lift something off the ground as well. You know, what comes into my head when we think of that is I think of the animal mutilation and abduction, where people claim to have witnessed cattle being beamed up into UFOs. So
the only kind of energy I can think of might be microwave or high frequency gravitational radiation, which would have that effect of actually distorting the plant and pushing it down in that way. Now that was just a wild guess, but it is possible that is the sort of energy that's being used. And if that energy is focused in some way, then that will determine the size of the strip.
The width of the strip.
The width of the strip, yes. So that, it seemed to me to be highly focused. It had to be highly focused, actually at the crops formation's height from the ground, to produce that effect.
Right.
We couldn't have any fuzziness, you know.
So what you're saying that you think that whatever beam it is, let's call it an energy beam, is focused. Let's say it's a 2 foot high crop. It's focused to 2 feet off the ground to pull the crop down. Is that what you?
Well, something like that. I mean, or perhaps so it's not ground actually level. I don't know.
Right. Okay.
Where the surface is sloping like that. I mean, it couldn't be precise like that.
No.
I don't suppose. But they maybe have clever adjustments, you know, that can be made to the focusing, which would always keep it at the ground level.
And quite often there's tiny little circles that are seen kind of 30 or 40 yards to the side of these phenomenal patterns. Have you got a thought on what those little circles might be?
Well, those were the ones I analysed initially, you know,
right.
the grape shot circles.
Right.
And they were easy to analyse because you could see distinctive stripping of the circle, and they were very, very small, some of them, and very precise. I think one possibility is that they're trying out the machine, the machine, the projector,
Yeah.
before they actually go into the big one.
Yeah. They're just giving it a quick test.
Just seeing, you know, a bit
Focusing
quick
it, perhaps.
spurt to see if it's working,
Yeah.
and then to go.
Before they let the computer program run and do the big.
That makes me. Yeah, well, that brings me to the other aspect. It seems to me, if someone's got that kind of technology, it would be the simplest thing in the world, I think, for them to link their computer graphics system up to the projectors. It might be more than one projector underneath, and create any picture they like in the crop. It doesn't have to be spiral circles. It could be programmed to flatten the crop in any, straight lines.
Well, it's like your television set. If you think of a black and white television, there's only one dot making making the entire picture, and the dot's either on or off, and it's being scanned across. So if you have scanning something that can affect or not affect, the lay of the crop, then I guess you could build up any picture you like. Whatever the line scanner is, we don't know what it is.
There's a story that a woman living next to a crop field, in a house next to a crop field, had witnessed one night a thing in the sky, glowing object, that actually projected moving beams of light into the crop.
Okay.
Now, the next day, there's a crop circle there.
Okay.
And I think there's a circumstantial link, and a very strong one, between the lights in the sky, the beams of light rather, and the formation. Also, there's a Japanese story from two boys in Japan, one little boy was out playing away from, they lived in a village in Japan, and one little boy strayed away from the others and into the grass, and a ball of light came towards him and became a disc of light, I think, and projected a beam into the crop, into the grass, the long grass in front of him, and persuaded the grass to go down in this sort of swirled circle. I think actually it was rings, not swirled circle. But he described...
If they wanted to do a ring, they would just switch off one of the components of the line scanner, wouldn't they? Switch off
that's right, the scanner.
And then you would get a ring instead of a circle.
That's right, yeah. So he watched this happen. He was not petrified, but he wasn't able to move while this was happening. And you could hear a kind of faint noise, whoo, 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 or something, while this was going on. And then the thing flew away. Now, he described this beam as a kind of trumpet, or made up of vapour. It was I've forgotten how he described it, but it was that kind of picture he created.
Right.
A trumpet. Now, it would be a trumpet, in my terms, it would be a trumpet with straight edges.
Yeah, a cone.
A cone, yes.
Yeah.
And anyway, he went to ran off to tell his friends, and he brought the friend back to look at it. And while they were both looking at it, this ball of light came back and produced another one for both their benefits.
Okay.
So it's like they're trying to tell us how it happens, and we don't believe it.
Right, so Roy has got his tongue in his cheek a little bit coming to this exhibition, I think. Is that right, Roy?
You could say that again.
Okay. Right, well, we're going to go in and have a look around now, and we're going to see some of these ETs and hopefully take a ride in Doctor Who's TARDIS.
I think they drew heavily on UFO law.
Yeah.
UFO law. People were talking about these things and they built them into their scripts.
Yeah.
Sometimes people can get scared by the fictions and don't know enough about the realities, and that's what I'm about, trying to get people to recognise the realities of the situation and how we can actually rationalise and understand better what's going on.
Yeah. And Marion's been an instrumental part of Roy's work throughout the years, so he tells me.
40 years. She's long suffering. had to cooperate and help.
So do you have any comment on these ETs, Marion? Would you feed this for breakfast?
I won't give him my cornflakes.
Needs a good feed, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And Busty Taylor brought Stephen Greer across to me.
Busty Taylor is a crop circle researcher.
Oh yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
quite well known, I think.
Okay.
And Marion was with me, and we were having a cup of tea afterwards. And Busty brought these people across to me and said, told Stephen Greer and his team that I could produce graphs that could predict when things are happening, you see. So Stephen Greer said to me, well, we had some sightings a few nights ago, and I wonder if they would have corresponded to what your graph was predicting. So we actually looked them up on the graph I hadn't. Now this was a hand-drawn graph because I hadn't got the computer system set up at that time. I looked them up, and sure enough, they could have been associated with my graph. So he said, well, that's remarkable. He said, could you give me three more, could you give me some predictions for tonight? We're going out again tonight in Wiltshire. I looked at my graph and I read off 3 times for him in the evening. So I think it was 10:30, 12:30 and something later. And off he went with this graph, and we went back eventually to Cheshire, where we lived at that time, and that was that. And for 3 months, but one of the people with Stephen Greer was a young woman called Sharon, or Sharia Damiak, and she was the facilitator for CSETI at that time for the team. And we got on very well later, subsequently. But she sent me a letter about 3 months later, I think it was, saying, Roy, don't think we told you, but in fact, your graphs were very well for us because Dr. Greer, I wasn't there myself, but Dr. Greer and his team were still there, and they saw events at all the times you gave him. And the middle one was a close encounter.
Why not join me, Richard D. Hall, live for an evening on board the Starship at the Oaken Gates Theatre in Telford, 11th of May 2011. In the show, I'll be addressing many of the areas I've covered over the past year, including false flag terrorism, UFOs, animal mutilation, the financial crisis, and more. Learn what your government isn't telling you and what your media isn't allowed to tell you. Tickets are available now from the Oaken Gates Theatre website. Further future venues include Weston-super-Mare, Leeds, Barnsley and Newcastle upon Tyne, with further venues to be arranged. Find more details on the richplanet.net website.